Hello, debt warriors, and welcome back to another episode of Millennial DebtDomination. I'm your host, Katie O'Shea. Nonprofit credit counseling agencies offer personal financial education, budgeting advice, money management workshops, and access to debt management plans. Certified counselors are trained in consumer credit, debt management, and money management, as well as budgeting. If you're considering working with a credit counseling agency, it's important to choose a reputable nonprofit organization like Navicore Solutions. In today's episode, we're breaking down exactly what to expect from a Navicore counseling session. To help guide us through this process, I'm joined by Michael Leon, the Senior Director of Counseling at Navicore Solutions. Michael and I will talk about why working with certified counselors matters, what a typical session looks like, common misconceptions about credit counseling, and much more. Now let's jump into my conversation with Michael. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Today, we're going to be talking about a Navicore counseling session. So to start, can you explain what credit counseling is and who it's designed to help?
Okay, yeah, sure I can. So credit counseling is a service that helps individuals basically improve their financial situation. And that's by advising them on how they should manage their money and also how they can pay back their debts. It can also involve discussing the pros and cons of different solutions and also providing them the tools in order to help them get back on track financially.
What types of financial situations typically lead to someone seeking out credit counseling?
So we see all types of reasons, and sometimes it could be loss of income. That's actually one of the major reasons. It could be that they were laid off or their hours were reduced at work. And as you know, most individuals live paycheck to paycheck. So if their income is reduced, it can impact them significantly. Also, some people may experience a divorce, maybe a medical emergency that created expenses. And also sometimes it could be due to just long-term money mismanagement. Sometimes they, buy things on credit that they see and they expect to be able to pay back within a reasonable time. But we all know sometimes, and I think maybe we've all done it at one point, maybe we say, well, we're just going to make the minimum payment, right? And so another month goes by, and then over time, making purchases and only making the minimum payment, that balance gets larger and larger. And then they find themselves in a situation where they can barely now afford that minimum payment.
Do you find that maybe some people kind of lacked financial education and that's kind of why they were overcharging and stuff? Like when they come to us, do they not maybe have that financial education background?
Yes, that is a big root cause. Unfortunately, financial education is not taught in many schools. And so people have to, learn themselves, sometimes the hard way, or maybe through a family member or friend. And so when they contact us, that's one of the ways that we're able to help them.
So why is it important to make sure the credit counselors are certified? And then can you explain what being certified means?
Well, you want to make sure that the person is knowledgeable and experienced. And if that person, that counselor is certified, that ensures that they were trained, and they were also not only trained, but trained on proven best practices in order to help them improve their financial situation. So if anyone is looking for advice, they definitely want to make sure that they're certified and trained.
And then what can someone expect during their initial credit counseling call?
Well, during the initial credit counseling call, we complete what we call a financial assessment. And the outcome of that is an action plan. So that involves reviewing their income, their expenses. We even look at their credit report as well. And it's to get a clear view of their current status. And then we use that information in order to create a financial plan. In addition to that, through that process, the counselor in many cases is able to help the caller find additional income or money, should I say, through social service providers. We have a database of national and local social service providers as well that can help with things such as paying your electrical bill or helping with medical expenses. And that is all included in the action plan, so that person can start benefiting and taking action right away in order to improve their situation.
Is there any paperwork that someone should have if they're like thinking about making that initial call?
So no paperwork is actually involved in order to make the call. If they just have a good idea of what their expenses are, that'll definitely help their counselor create the plan for them. But they can just call when they're ready.
Should they have maybe all any like personal identification available or maybe their own credit reports, or is that something we can pull up
No,
for
they
them?
don't need to have any of those things at all. They can just call us. We'll pull a credit report with them and we'll be able to look at it together and review their expenses.
How long does that typical first session last? And is it usually done over the phone or in person?
So most sessions are now done over the phone. We have realized over time that most people feel comfortable just, picking up the phone at a convenient time for them. And the counseling session can last up to an hour, but we're very flexible as well. Sometimes we have callers that call in and maybe they only have a half an hour on their lunch break. And so we're able to get started with them during that time frame. And some have more time. And so if they have a lot of debts that they owe and different circumstances, it can also sometimes extend over an hour. But for the most part, about an hour or so.
And then what financial issues can a Navicore counselor help with beyond credit card debt?
So we have a suite of different services. The great thing is that our counselors are also HUD certified as well. So we provide housing counseling and we can help with rental counseling as well. So rental counseling, foreclosure prevention, first-time homebuyer assistance. We also provide student loan counseling, bankruptcy certification courses, and student loan counseling as well, to name a few.
Can you explain how a debt management plan, also called a DMP for all my listeners, works and how it's different from debt settlement or bankruptcy?
Yes. So a debt management plan is designed for someone who wants to repay their debt under better terms. Most consumers have credit cards that have interest rates that are probably anywhere between 20 and 30%. And if they're making minimum payments on that debt, they'll notice that the balance is barely moving. And in some cases, they're over the limit or late, so they're also getting fees in addition to that interest rate as well. So when they enroll in a debt management program, what we are able to help them do with that program is consolidate the payments that they're making to several different credit cards into one payment. They make that payment to our organization each month, and then that payment is then distributed to each of their creditors in order to ensure timely payment. And while on the program, they experience benefits such as a lower payment than what they would be paying on their own, and also a lower interest rate. And that interest rate, that lower interest rate, is in most cases single digits. And that allows that payment that they're being made to be applied towards the principal so the debt can get paid off within 3 to 5 years. Now, that differs from debt settlement or bankruptcy because bankruptcy actually is not good for your credit. Many consumers are also still looking to not have that negative hit or impact on their credit score for 10 years. And so that's what bankruptcy does. It will discharge all your debts if you qualify, but then you're going to have a hard time obtaining credit after that. And if you do, it's going to be extremely high interest terms. Debt settlement, in a way, is very similar. It has a negative impact on your credit report. And because that involves you making payments to an organization where they hold that money in an escrow account for a period of time that could take a year or 2 years until they accumulate enough money in order to negotiate with the creditor in order to settle. And during that time, it's a possibility that the consumer may still be sued or pursued after by collection agencies in order to collect that debt. And so that's the difference between those two things. Through a debt management program, you're actually paying the creditor every month under better terms so the debt can get paid off in a shorter time period.
Just so my listeners understand, if you're enrolled on a DMP, your credit score won't be negatively impacted.
So the act of enrolling in a debt management program actually does not have a direct impact on your score. But when you do enroll in a program, your accounts are closed in order for you to actually pay down the balance. And in some situations, the closing of the accounts could temporarily reduce your credit score. But in the long run, with the debts paid off, many consumers experience an increase in their score over time by showing consistent on time payments on these cards and also lowering their balances.
And do you think when a lot of potential clients call, they hear all this information and they think like, is this too good to be true?
You know what? At first, sometimes they do because it's not something that they heard of before, and when they hear it, they're a little bit skeptical. Wow, and they say to themselves, to our counselors many times, I didn't know something like this existed. But once we explain everything and how it actually works, they're really excited about it and happy.
You just kind of talked about the debt management plan, but what are some of the benefits enrolling in a DMP through a nonprofit credit counseling
Yeah.
agency?
So since a nonprofit organization is licensed and accredited, this gives them the ability to work directly with the banks in order to provide these type of benefits. And you also are working again with an organization whose main mission and goal is to help consumers rather than an organization who maybe the bottom line is maybe their main concern. So that's one of the biggest benefits as well, having a licensed, accredited organization who's authorized to work with the creditors on your behalf.
So many people feel embarrassed or shame about their debt. How do our counselors help ease that emotional burden?
Well, our counselors talk to people daily who experience these type of financial issues, and so they're able to very easily help the consumer see that they're not the only one that's in this situation. There's unfortunately many people that have found themselves in a similar situations, but they have been able to overcome it with assistance. And so once they're able to explain that to the consumer, they're able to put their mind at ease and move forward with the solutions that they're recommending to them. So they receive extensive training, and that experience that they have allows them to be able to do that.
And do you think maybe sometimes some potential clients may come in hot because they're not sure what this is and they're just kind of nervous to talk about their finances? And how do the counselors kind of handle that?
They definitely do. And in many cases, sometimes they're upset with the creditor because maybe they feel like they received some fees that they shouldn't have received, or they feel like there was some injustice done to them. And so the counselor again is able to help them not only to feel better about the situation, but explain to them that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because a lot of times the frustration is due to them feeling like that they don't have any options that are available to them. And so once the counselor is able to explain to them that there are options and there are programs out there in order to help you with your situation, they're able to slowly start feeling better and better because, again, they see light at the end of the tunnel. And so that's what our counselors are able to do for them.
And then, is there any financial education a part of the credit counseling process? If so, what kind of resources does Navicore offer clients?
Yes, financial education is actually one of the biggest pieces of our credit counseling session. One of the things that is done at the beginning of the session as well is creating that spending plan. And it's looking at income, it's looking at expenses, and making recommendations to them in regards to how they should spend their money. In addition to that, as well, since they are HUD certified as well, they're providing information and education in regards to stabilizing their living situation. It could be letting them know that there's a program that's available to them in order to pay their rent for them a couple of months or to help them pay their mortgage. Or even directing them to an educational course that's going to help them get prepared to purchase a home through our home buyer assistance education as well. So there's a lot of education that's provided to them.
And then once they're in the DMP, Navicore also offers a bunch of resources on our website, including this podcast and blog posts too, that our clients can get there and they can make sure when they're done with the plan that they're staying out of debt.
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of education on our website as well, an educational series that they can read through. And we also send out regular newsletters and education and information once they enroll in the debt management program as well. That's going to motivate them and help them stay consistent on the program in order to get out of debt.
Are there any fees involved in credit counseling?
Yes, there is a fee involved. However, most of our counseling sessions are provided at no cost to the consumer, depending on their needs. If there is a charge for counseling, it can range anywhere from $0 to $60. Now, after the initial counseling is provided, if they decide to enroll in a debt management program, there is a one-time enrollment fee that can range from $0 to $60, and there may also apply a monthly fee that can also range from $0 to $65. And this is also based on their ability to pay.
Okay, so if someone's looking to get started with Navicore, does Navicore offer any virtual counseling in addition to calling and getting the information?
Yes, we do offer virtual counseling. Consumers can go to navicoresolutions.org and they can click on the Get Started button, and they can do this at any time, 24/7.
Yeah, that's good because, sometimes people don't necessarily work in the hours we work. So it's good to know that there's something available for them at all times of the day.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And as always, I'm going to link Navicore in the description of this podcast so everyone can get that there if they're looking to get started. We keep talking about nonprofit, putting so much emphasis on the nonprofit part. So how can someone find a reputable nonprofit credit counseling agency?
So there's a number of different ways. We are members of the NFCC, which is a National Foundation for Credit Counseling. They can visit their website in order to look up reputable nonprofit organizations, in addition to FCAA as well.
I'm going to make sure to link those both in the description of this podcast so everyone can get that there. And are there any common misconceptions people have about credit counseling?
So yes, credit counseling is compared to, or should I say, many consumers calling in, they think credit counseling is debt settlement, and that's because marketing from debt settlement companies sometimes blur the lines between the difference between the two. But as I explained previously, a credit counseling organization is very different from a debt settlement organization. And so our main goal is to help stabilize that individual and create a plan for them to actually pay back their debts in full.
For someone who's listening right now, who's feeling overwhelmed by their debt, what's the first steps you can advise them to take?
Pick up the phone. That is probably the best first step that you can actually take. Don't be embarrassed about your situation. Explain to whoever answers the phone what you're going through, what your wants, what your needs are, and what you're looking for. And that's the first step that you can do in order to help improve the situation.
Just make the call and get all the information and everything.
Just make that phone call. Once you're connected to a certified credit counselor, they'll walk you through the steps and help you get on a path and create a plan in order to address your financial situation. Whether your income has been reduced or you're just tired of paying, credit cards every month and not seeing the balance go down.
And then I just want to make sure, so my listeners know, even though if they do the first initial counseling session, they don't have to register right then and there, right?
That is correct.
For the debt management plan.
Once they complete a credit counseling session, their counselor will make a recommendation for what the best solution is going to be for them, taking into consideration pros and cons of each of those recommendations. And so at that point, depending on what that recommendation is, they can think about it and call us back later on and move forward at that point. Yep.
So they could register right then and there, or they could think about it and then just whatever works best for them.
Correct. Typically, what would happen is that we would send them what we call an agreement that explains how the program works. They would review it online and electronically sign it and get started right away.
Mike, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I enjoyed talking with you about everything about a Navicore counseling session.
It was my pleasure talking with you as well.
Yes, this will definitely be useful. And of course, you can get all of Navicore's information in the link in the description of this podcast. But thank you again. Credit counseling can be life-changing because it lifts the weight of unmanageable debt off your shoulders. If you're struggling to keep up with your monthly bills, take the first step by reaching out to a Navicore counselor. They'll work with you to gain a full understanding of your unique financial situation and help develop a personalized plan to move forward. During your session, a certified counselor will take an in-depth look at your finances. By reviewing your income, expenses, and debts, they can recommend solutions that best meet your individual needs. Once they understand the circumstances that led you to your situation, they'll help you create a monthly spending plan. With your permission, they'll also pull your credit report and discuss options that fit within your budget. If you qualify, you may be eligible for a debt management plan, one of the most effective tools to help you pay off debt and regain financial stability. Seeking professional help is a smart move when debt feels overwhelming. Don't wait. Check the description of this episode to learn how to connect with a certified Navicore counselor today. And with that, we wrap up another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening. And if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate and review us there. I'll talk to you next time, Millennials, Gen Z, and everyone else tuning in. Bye.